My name is Hmp Cxc and I'm designated Vice Principal of the Cxc program in Her Majesty's Prison. Over the course of the past couple of years, I have accomplished great achievement that I never thought was possible. And of course, those achievements are quite a handful of subjects, namely maths, English, principle of business, principle of accounts, and in the next month I'll be going to sit the economics exam. Well, just for the purpose of clarity, the 4 subjects that I have currently, I got a 2 in maths, got a distinction in English, a distinction in the principle of accounts, a distinction in the principle of business, and with the confidence that I already have, I now have, it is guaranteed that the least I can get in the economics that I'm going to do next month is a 2. A 2 are a distinction, nothing below that. So, as it is right now, yeah, I'm counting my chickens before they hatch because of the confidence I've gained and how my self-esteem has bloomed, that currently I have 5 subjects. But where I am now, today, didn't just happen overnight, and definitely a few years ago, I wasn't even half as close to this destination as I was back then. First thing first, I was a high school dropout. The last grade I was in was 42 and I was expelled because of antisocial behavior. And you know, after being expelled from school, I went to the streets for comfort. You know, over the courses of the years I was in the streets, I did antisocial things until eventually I was caught up and brought into prison, 2005 to be exact. And honestly speaking, the manner in which I came to prison, it left me not with low self-esteem, but with no self-esteem at all. The way how I was badly beaten, the way my family and other friends viewed me differently, to the mere fact that I was caught up in these activities and placed into prison for such heinous crimes. And honestly speaking, I had no self-esteem. Yeah, so I was brought into prison on 16 charges to be exact. 16 high court charges, 9 counts of armed robbery, 2 counts of assault with intent to rob, 3 counts of shooting with intent to endanger life, and 1 count of attempted murder. And during the courses of my years in prison, while in prison, I still picked up 2 wounding with intent charges. So in all, I actually had 18 charges, 16 that I came off the street with, and while in prison, I picked up 2 wounding with intent charges. And those charges came about of course, being angry, not only with myself but with others, and easily triggered off and getting into fights. And like I said previously, you know, the self-esteem, it just wasn't there. I felt like I had nothing to live for. I was just about, it's just like I was just existing. I wasn't really living. There was no just cause for me to be on the earth other than just to exist. And during the course of the years in prison, you know, I started doing a little reflecting in and out of lockdown because I was a troublemaker. I spent most of my years in lockdown as well, maximum security that is. And whilst in there, I did some reflection and start to question myself and ask myself if this is the path I really want to stay on for life. And my answer was no, but I just didn't know where to turn. And then, I think it's in the year 2011 or 12, either late 2011 or early 2012. Remember I came into prison in 2005, so that's like roughly 7 years into my incarceration. A gentleman by the name of Newish Nathan came into the prison and he decided to initiate the Cxc program in the jail. And when the offer was proposed to me, I didn't hesitate to accept it because, like I tell you, I've been asking myself if this is the path I really want to stay on for the rest of my life, and my answer was no. I just didn't know exactly where to turn, and when the opportunity came my way to start the Cxc program, well, I didn't hesitate to take it because I tell myself, well, probably this is the path that is really there for me, so let me see what it really has to offer. Let me see what fruition is there for me to gain. So I got involved in the Cxc program. After the first year of passing, Nita acknowledged that I have the potential not only to learn, but also to teach. So he bestowed a degree of trust and responsibility upon me and allowed me to teach some of his students while he was gone, because he ended up got vindicated or extricated, must be in the middle of 2012. He was out of the prison. Not sure precisely when he went, but he left. So the onus was more upon the inmates, because he has his freedom and he has his family to take care. He bestowed a degree of trust and confidence and responsibility in myself. And after passing the first set of exams, the no self-esteem that I had started to transform into some self-esteem. And that self-esteem grew gradually. And especially after taking the mantle of a teacher and teaching some students for myself. And when the first batch of results came back, the pass rate was very comforting. For the subject that I taught specifically, which was English, the last pass rate was 91%. And I will say that although I am the main teacher for the English, I also participate and assist with teaching mathematics, principle of accounts, and principle of business. Every time I pass a subject, I make it my business to do some form of teaching so that I could mold myself. It caused me to understand and realize that the path that I am, although I had already come to the conclusion that it was not for me, that really crystallized the fact that it definitely was not for me. And this is the part that I see and I perceive could not only help to build my self-esteem, but it could also help me to build someone's self-esteem and expose others' potential. Not only did I teach the CXC level, on the CXC level, but I also taught students who was on a less advanced or on a basic level, and mold them from that basic level until the following year they were able to advance into the more advanced class, which is the CXC programs. And some of these students, when they came into the class initially, just like myself, I looked deep within myself and I know what I saw within myself, and I also see it in others. And some of them really had low self-esteem, and some of them were just angry and bitter. So it took a lot of mental exhaustion, patience, faith with some of these students. Sometimes they get frustrated easily. They start to feel deflated, or they lose confidence easily at times because of the trials and the tribulations of behind you. So it is not an easy task, but it is a task that I have come to love and enjoy doing. I have grown to love the teaching more and more passionately with each day, because I teach in the prison 6 days a week. So like I said, there were some students on a basic level, basic grade students, less advanced students, we call them in the class. We try not to label them as slow, but we say less advanced, so it's less advanced, and they are more advanced students. And regardless to what state they may come in, we always try to make sure that by the end of the day, for those who might not have even got the opportunity to advance to the next level, they at least advance somewhat in the basic level, so they're always left with more that they came with. With the most recent CXC results, we had 37 entries in the prison, 36 passes. We had 17 distinctions, 7 2s, and 11 3s. And the overall pass rate, percentage pass rate was 97.2% pass rate. We did maths. Maths was 100% pass rate. We did human and social biology, 100% pass rate as well. We did principle of accounts, 100% pass rate. We did principle of business, 100% pass rate. We did Spanish, 100% pass rate. We did social studies, 100% pass rate. And we did English, and we got 91% pass rate. 10 out of the 11 students in the English pass and some.
Many of these students were students who they left the school system as unaccomplished. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
Why are you able to reach them? This to me is a key question. We are seeing, there's no question, many of those that we see on the arrest bench were not accomplished in school.
Yeah.
Were by the time they're in Form 3, Form 4, they're already the marginalized ones. They're the troubled kids, the disgusting kids.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, maybe you can help the listener understand how these kids, these same kids come into the prison, the disgusting, the troubled. How can you reach them?
Well, what I've come to understand, I've come to learn about these, well, not kids, but these folks in the prison, these students in the prison. Most, if not all of them, were just like me, high school dropouts. They didn't finish school. And just like myself, these students for the CXC classes didn't just come to prison and pick up brains. They came off of the street with brains in their head. But the problem is, after school, many of them were not given the opportunity. And many of them didn't have positive role models or mentors or people to motivate them to really try and continue or pursue these academics. Understand? And in the prison, when I observe students, what I look for is it could be 10% ability, as long as I see there's willingness. And that I prefer to teach a student that has more willingness than ability. As long as I perceive that that student is willing, well, I personally will make it my business to go approach a student, reason to them, counsel them if needs be, encourage them, inspire them, motivate them, show them what the benefits of having a good education is. In the span, in a manner of a couple months or weeks, when they see this, the task of accomplishing these subjects start to be so difficult, sometimes they get a little, demoralized, and they at times want to finish or done away with the class. So it's one of two things I do. I either encourage them to stay, or if they're out, I encourage them to come in. And one of the best ways to get them to want to be a part of this class and stay within this class is to show them the benefits of having an education. And I always tell them it is better to have these valuable achievements there, rest down and not have any use for them, than there may come a time in life when they may need these invaluable achievements and not have them. So if you get them, they are yours forever. That's why I always tell them, these accomplishments, these subjects are yours forever. They are yours, and no one can take them away from you. I always try to keep the willingness in them, because from I see that they have a willingness, I know sometimes they can get deflated by the challenges ahead of them and so forth, but I always try to encourage them and motivate them in whatever way I can.
So you're, as a teacher, your teaching methods are more, how do I say this? It's almost more important to motivate than it is to teach.
Yeah. In my humble opinion, it is more important to motivate than to teach. Because without the motivation, first thing first, the teaching will be extremely difficult. And not only will the teaching be difficult, but you may not even have a student to teach. So I put motivation ahead of the actual teaching, and the motivation does not done away with the moment you get them to enter into the class. That is just the beginning of the motivation process, because the moment they get into the class, there will come, well, at least in this institution, there will come times when frustration will get the best of them, or some ill news, some ill tidings from outside come about a family or relative or close friend pass away, or something to do with their offspring or their loved one, and sometimes they will come to me and say, "Amy, but teacher, I really can't take on this class no more. I got so much things on my mind. I going through some vibes right now, I stressing, I can't take on the class no more. The class can just put more stress on my mind." So I always have to find means and ways to keep them enthusiastic about the class itself. I always have to find someone to tell them, "Listen, I understand that you're stressing right now, but you only can stress on something if you allow that factor to be dominant in your thoughts. Preoccupy yourself with something constructively. The more time you spend occupying yourself constructively in books or studying for a subject is the less time you're going to spend stressing or ruminating over some form of ill tidings that you might have received from the outside. Stay in the books, stay in the books. You're going to have your moment to stress and to think. But listen it, you can't completely eradicate it from your mind because it is your problem, not mine, and you have no ultimate control over what thoughts are going to flow into your mind. But you have ultimate control of what thoughts you are going to allow to be dominant, what thoughts you are going to dwell on in your mind, cast out. So you judge progress by looking at where you're at back then, where you were back then to where you're at now. And I often ask them a question like, a few weeks ago, for instance, did you have any idea what simultaneous equation were in maths? And they will tell me no. And then I will ask them today, well, what is simultaneous? I will put a problem on the board, simultaneous equation problem, and tell them go over there and solve it. So, you know, even if they are not as successful as they would like to be, I always try to show them, do not let that prohibit your progress or your acknowledgement of your progress is not where you're at today. Please don't ever feel like you are not progressing because you may not get enough. You may not get a higher pass rate in a test like the other student over there. If you got 5 out of 20, a few weeks or a few months ago, you had no knowledge about what you're doing in principle of business, you would have gotten 0 out of 20. Judge the progress from 0 to 5 and let that be your motivator to know that, well, okay, I got 5 out of 20, a few weeks ago I would have gotten 0 out of 20, but I can make it my business to get at least 10 out of 20 the next test.
You're teaching in a very difficult place. This is Her Majesty's prison. This isn't a private boarding school. It goes without saying, you're teaching difficult students, or at least students that have been identified as difficult in the past.
They are difficult.
Many of them are here. They read it at the school at a very early age.
Yeah.
When you're teaching them using your methods being based on motivation instead of criticism, are you seeing a change in them? Meaning, you know, let's talk about aggression. I know from experience, this is an aggressive place. Are you seeing that aggression reduced? Are you seeing a change in the nature of the students?
Yeah, the change is extremely dramatic with respect to the aggressive behavior of the students because they want to be here. They want to be here. After motivating them and keeping them enthusiastic about the class, they do not want to miss a session. Sometimes we might have a day or two when we have to postpone class or the officers have to postpone class because of circumstances. But you should hear them when the classroom to the building. You hear me, what teacher want the class? How come we had in the class yesterday? How come what was going on, man? I wanted to be there, I wanted to be in class. You understand? So that is one of the factors that cause the aggression or the aggressive behavior of the students to reduce or to fall dramatically. The natural enthusiasm embedded within them from the motivation and the inspirational approaches from myself as a teacher keeps them want to be on a level so that they could always be there. Also, I always try to show them that education is not mainly about what you learn, but it is what you do with what you learn. So, if you come to the class, for instance, social studies, and you learn that a way to deal with anger issues is to first acknowledge that you have an anger problem and then address it assertively. Well, if you learn that in class, but you just keep it in here, and then you find yourself in a situation where you are being angry and you do not take the time to acknowledge that you are angry first and foremost and to approach it from an assertive standpoint, well, that education, as far as I am concerned, is of no value to you. So I always try to encourage them and I always try to enlighten them to the fact that education is not just about keeping it up here. Somebody's supposed to be able to look at you and judge you by your behavior and know, hey, that is an educated man. Look how skillfully he maneuvered himself around this obstacle. Look how he just turned away from this brawl that was about to happen that he would have definitely got into a few years ago, a few months ago. Are they supposed to be your actions supposed to speak louder than your words? So the officers are looking along with inmates, society is hearing, and society is listening, and you have to be able to maintain the positive outlook and reputation of the class, and that has to be done in your behavior. And you will come to realize that as stiff-necked as most of the inmates might have appeared to be in the previous year, they really do listen. They really do listen. Perhaps they wouldn't listen to everybody who speak to them, but because they could relate, to each other. You know, I'm a prisoner as well. I always tell them, don't see me as no superior to you. If we want to paint a different picture of ourselves, if we want to be progressive, and we want to go out and change our course of living and our course of behavior, we first have to start with the way we carry ourselves, which will contribute to our reputation, because I always try to tell them that your reputation is an asset. People act in accordance to your reputation. If you go to a store and you're accustomed to trust and not pay, well, even if a new shopkeeper come into the village that you live in, just by people murmuring about you and saying, hey, you like to trust and don't pay. When you go to the shopkeeper, might not know you in person, but they hear the little rumor about you. The reputation is you like to trust and do not pay. Well, when you go to the shopkeeper, as much as the shopkeeper here know you in person, you cannot get nothing from them. But if you have a reputation, hey.
We've also talked about self-esteem. You talked directly about your own self-esteem. It's fair to say has been enhanced greatly since you came into this place. Do you see the same thing amongst your students? Do you see them starting to feel better for themselves, seeing themselves as having a value?
Well, sometimes they not only perceive themselves as having a high value, but sometimes they actually become a little pompous. Because some treat me.
We laugh at this, but the point I think that you're trying to make is they're seeing themselves as something other than jailmen. And I, for one, would hope that when they leave the jail, that view of themselves continues and see themselves as more than jailmen. They have potential to be serious contributors or make serious contributions to their community. Is that what you're seeing as well?
All of them, but quite a number of them will come to me and express their desire to go out and do better, to be better, to do something with themselves, to understand. You will often hear them say, man, I didn't experience the bad boy part. I don't see what that had to offer. But what I see this part you have to offer now, the offerings that the bad boy part had pales in comparison to what this side of the spectrum, the spectrum have to offer. So trust me, the CXC program, it is very, 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 very instrumental with respect to having inmates wanting to be different, needing to do something different, because they now realize that I am not just a bad boy. I am not only limited to doing stupid things. Hey, I'm passing Cxc. And then sometimes when they hear the pass rate of the high schools around the Caribbean and so forth, and they hear, well, 33% pass rate in English, 42% pass rate in maths, and some low grades. We deal with it on a racial level. When we look at the ratio behind you, 37 entries and 36 passes, 17 distinctions. And come on, they have no other alternative but to feel good about themselves and also want to do better when they reach on the external.